Hi, I'm Eric Ford for Made Here. Seth Grant's film Harry's One Vermont Community and the Flood of 2023 introduces us to Harry's Hardware in the center of Cabot, Vermont. The store and bar serves as a third place to gather at the heart of the town. And this is the story about the community coming together to rebuild after the flood. You can watch Harry's and other great Made Here films streaming on our website and through the PBS app. Enjoy the film, and thanks for watching.
We were just trying to create a space for ourselves, right? We just thought it'd be cool. And it turned into a lot more than we ever imagined. Open for business. The community really bought into it being this awesome place, and they've really made it their home and their community. It's worked accidentally. Why are we here? Well, everybody asks me that question. I'm not really sure. If you'd asked me 10 years ago what I would be doing right now, this is not what I would say. We settled in Vermont, and prior to that, I was a military spouse, also a lawyer, as is my husband, and we just were always moving from one thing to the next. And being able to really settle into a community was difficult. So we moved to Cabot, and we got attached really quickly, and we care. It was nice to care. And one of the things that was missing from Cabot for us was a third place. I had this crazy idea and called my husband up at work and said, I have this really wild idea. I've been talking to Bobby at the store, and what if we put a bar in it? What if we went to them and said, would you partner with us, and would you be interested in this idea? And they said, sure, let's talk. We talked for multiple times for multiple hours over the course of several months, and then we bought in. I wanted the hardware store to stay here, but the hardware store couldn't handle being in this space by itself and survive, and a bar honestly would fail tomorrow. It just can't. Beer might have a nice margin, but still only costs $7. That's not gonna pay your rent. As we were growing, the store just slowly started evolving and changing. We right away started having music, which we never even dreamed of doing, and it just kind of, again, organically happened. Now we book out 6 to 7 months without even trying.
My name's Chuck Talbert. I am pretty much a lifelong resident of Cabot, so I grew up here on this farm. I was the cow milking kid. My brother was the mechanical kid. And it used to be painfully dull. I mean, really. Seriously. 7 o'clock at night, nothing. It was desolate. You know, if there was a good breeze, you could have seen the dust coming down the street. You know, you'd run into somebody at the post office or grabbing a cup of coffee at the general store. And this would be at 7:45 in the morning, and everybody's rushing off to work, so you don't have time to sit around and talk. It's like, but what a better way to sit and like talk to somebody and really get to know them a little better than over a beer.
So the Buy the Buddy a Beer board is where you can come in and you can pay for a beer for your friend or the contractor that worked on your house or whatever. And we put it up there, and then when they come in, they see that they have their name on a board. I have had one customer having a pay it forward moment, and he put like $100 down on the table and said, I just want to give this to the store. I want you to give these beers to people. People do stuff like that all the time.
People from the other towns or the other states that come here, all over New England, people come here. For the first time they walk in here and they're like, what is this place? I'm like, exactly, what is this place? Tell me, what is this place? Because it's morphing all the time, it's changing, and it's special.
I think this community was hungry for a third space. it gave folks something to glom on to, right? And to be a part of. And it felt it just feels like home to a lot of folks, I think.
This floor couldn't get any more imperfect. Like, this is insane. Like, it dips, it flows, there's soft points, there's holes in the floor where they used to pull the rope up. So like they're different sizes based on the rope that you would need, and they would just pull it up and cut off the parts that they would need.
I'm gonna say I'm very protective of the rough edges in here. I think I feel really strongly that that's why this place feels homey.
And I didn't even realize it was a cabinet, and when I bought it, I was like, I have to open this thing. And I opened it up, I was like, whoa, there's all this random stuff back here. We had like keys that, I don't know, probably from the 50s, like just stacked in there. So we took all this stuff down, but we just took it down. So like you can still see where the hinges were. One of the things that I love about it is I think that it makes people feel really comfortable when they come in here because it feels like your house, which is imperfect.
You can come in here with your muck boots and sit down at the bar and not be afraid to mess up the floor.
And I've really learned being in the center of the village feels a lot like being in the heart of the town. So whether we want to or not, we kind of know a little bit about everything that's going on just by being here. My girls are like, like the mayors of Cabot.
You know, just transitioning into COVID and then after the flood happened was very interesting how many people couldn't remember what it was like without us until they couldn't have it here, and it really hit the town hard. It started raining on the 4th of July.
When there were warnings of the flood happening, I honestly did not think it was going to happen. It was inconceivable to me to think that Cabot was going to flood again.
There were flood warnings, and this community experienced a flood in 2011. The town replaced culverts, and I believe we all got very complacent. I know I was complacent. I thought we were going to be fine. I think a lot of people thought we were going to be fine. And then we weren't.
I believe it was July 10th was the flood, but the night before, I live in Lower Cabot, which is further down from the main village. I live right by the Winooski River, which was the problem child for this whole flood. I could hear the water overflowing the banks from where I lived. Matter of fact, it was the dam there that was blown out because of all the water that we had. And I knew at that point that we were going to have a lot of problems the next day.
It was pretty horrific. The last flood was a repeat of Hurricane Irene, only it was worse.
We were stacking wood at my house, and we were filthy, and it was pouring. Talked to my kids, was like, let's go dance in the rain. We used to do this all the time when you were little. Let's go dance in the rain. I'm running around with the dogs. The lawn is pooling everywhere. I'm just having fun. My husband's filming me. And I looked at him and I said, God, is that thunder? Is it thundering out now too? And he's like, I don't think so. I think that's the river. I'm like, the river's making that noise? That's crazy. Walked with the dogs down to the river. Realized that the sound that we were hearing was boulders being thrown down the river. Then my husband said, I'm gonna go on the bridge, take a look at the river, and maybe run across and just check on town. I said, okay. Brought the dogs, walked up through the yard. Suddenly my oldest comes running out of the house and says, Dad says grab his truck and get in town now. I went, whoa, okay. By the time I got into town, I couldn't get to him. The flood had already started coming across it. So he looked at me and he was like, stop. I parked the truck across the street and ran across.
My husband came over here, and the creek is there that flooded, and so there was water starting to shoot across the road. And then we had a bunch of mulch, and we just started carrying and just throwing it at the door so that the water couldn't get into the door. And we created a barrier, up to the window all the way to here, and just blocked it so that hopefully the flood waters wouldn't get inside. And then it just got crazy. I couldn't stand up anymore because it was getting too strong. All of this dirt just disappeared. You can see where the concrete kind of broke away, and where we're standing was not here. So I was up here looking down, and I said, I can't stand here anymore. Where do we go? And he said, we need to go up. And I said, how do we go up? And he goes, we climb. So I just walked along here until we could get to the stairs and climbed up and stood at the top of the balcony and just went, wow.
It just came down for hours. I'd never seen it rain like that. And then I saw Joanna had posted a video on Facebook from the second story of the hardware store. Water rushing across the street and hitting the gas pump, and the wave was almost as tall as the gas pumps. And at that point, it's like, holy shit. They're in the second story of the hardware store, probably not by choice. What we'd seen years earlier, the water pouring over the big culvert in the village, it was deep water and moving fast, and then it was just pouring into the other side of the town hall. There was nowhere to go unless you were ankle deep or deeper in water.
It went down, probably. It went down the river, Chuck?
Well, it went down that hole. I don't know how far it got after that.
Small
Well,
deep
I
hole.
sat here and watched it. Is it floating?
And meanwhile, I'm texting Rory and Joanna up in the second story of the hardware store. And it took a few hours and before somebody dared to drive a tractor where the water had been flowing to rescue them with the bucket of the tractor.
Right as it started to get dark, it started to rain really hard, and we had another gush of water. And we don't know if a pond gave way or what, but the fire department started going, we got to get you out. This is getting really, really terrifying. They were really worried about the oil. They were worried about the structure of the building. And so one of the farmers drove up to the door. We were down here because my husband's like, we got to get into rescue mode. So we were grabbing stuff off the shelves. We could, flashlights, everything, just whatever we might need. And the tractor comes around. I said, he knows we can't get out the front door, right? And he goes, no, this is our way out. So we ran back up the stairs and got on the porch and climbed into the bucket of the tractor. And he backed us up and dropped us off across the street. My husband went to help the fire department, and I went home.
The next morning, that's when we saw all the damage, and mainly in the business district right here where this store sits right now, and further north of town on Route 215, and then naturally all the back roads. It looked like I came into a war zone. It was just a disaster. There was water and mud still in the main street. The culvert was still somewhat plugged where all the trees came in and caused some of the problems in town. The main roads into the town, just about every single road in town was damaged.
I can't believe the luck of us just showing up right when we did. It turned so quick that had we been there 5 minutes earlier, we wouldn't have seen a thing. And had we been 5 minutes later, we wouldn't have been able to save a thing. And if water had gotten into this first floor, I don't know, we wouldn't be sitting here. Woke up in the morning and came here with my husband, and we checked everything out and was like, okay, we can just start digging some mud out. And he came up from downstairs and said, you got to come take a look at this. And I was like, the mud's really bad. And he's like, just come downstairs. And the whole back of the building had fallen, the floor had fallen into the river. And we're like, well, we didn't expect that. Not an hour later, we suddenly had 35 to 40 volunteers on our doorstep. Just, how can we help?
And people were coming in with four-wheelers, tractors, excavators. But it was kind of a calm quiet amidst the chaos. 17
pieces of equipment running around the village. Every tractor that could get there and every excavator that could get there. Nobody expected to get paid. But these people just showed up and started rebuilding the first morning with no expectation other than, we've got work to do.
I had some of the elderly folks in town that weren't able to really do any lifting or climbing or whatever, and they You're like, what can we do? What can we do? And we were just setting things out, and they just said, well, we're just gonna start making it look pretty. And I just looked at him and was like, look pretty? And she goes, well, you're not closing, are you? So you gotta make it look good. And I was like, oh, I guess we're not closing. And then, it looked like a war zone, but she said, people need things. We gotta sell stuff. Let's just do it. When I woke up the morning after the flood, I didn't have any idea what I was gonna come into. And I was numb, completely and totally numb. When everybody started showing up, it made me realize that we had a lot of reasons to rally. I had so much gratitude toward everybody that was here. It made me realize how important this place isn't just for me, but how important this place is to the community.
It was like a magnet. Cabot will be okay if the store is there. It's always been here under different ownership, but we'll be okay if it's here. And so they just gravitated to this store here.
There was this kind of community need to just hang out and talk with each other. It's like it was something that really was needed at that point.
It became a place, again, a third place, where everybody could come talk about how the flood impacted them, to cry. There was a lot of tears, a lot of laughs, all those things were coming out of people around in a safe space. And then I said, well, I guess we're gonna be here no matter what, because the town won't let us leave. I don't think I have any real expectations more than I just want this to continue being what it is. I don't want to ever get too big. I want to stay true to my rough edges around here. I want the charm to stay as it is. I want the community to feel like it's their community place. I don't want it to get swallowed up by tourists, for example. I want the tourists to add to it, but I don't want the locals to ever feel like this isn't their home. So as long as we keep continuing that, I'll be pretty happy. This is going to be a new normal that we're going to have to constantly be coming back to, dealing with that trauma feeling that you get when it rains outside, wondering when the next flood is coming. We have a business that's in the center of a village with such a strong community, and I think that these communities exist where you don't expect them to exist. When you have these crises, you all need to come together and work together like we did here. Flooding and climate events are really becoming the new normal, and it's going to keep hitting these communities over and over again. And we just need to come together and continue to unite with these communities, work together to think about how to prevent them in the future, but also remember that we have each other when they appear.
Vermont Public, partnering with local filmmakers to bring you stories made here. For more, visit vermontpublic.org.